somewhere in the stony vastness of the Judean desert, where the wind has been carving the same cliffs for longer than any empire has existed, there lived a community the world learned to ignore. They made their home in caves hollowed out by time and sand. They did not build palaces, they did not chase coins, they did not dream of thrones. They were searching for something most people today would call impossible: the renewal of the human body through what the earth offers quietly, without advertising, without noise. They were known as the Essenes, healers of the desert, guardians of scrolls. Rome tried to erase and time tried to bury. For centuries their knowledge slept beneath layers of dust and stone, until the caves of Qumran gave back fragments of a wisdom that should never have been forgotten. Among those fragments lies a text almost no one has held in their hands. It does not speak of distant prophecies or angels at war. It speaks of seeds, 12 seeds the Essenes honored as sacred, 12 plant keys capable of awakening in the human body an ancient memory. The memory of how to repair, how to heal, how to return to its original design. The author left no name, only a title: The Last Healer. An old man who felt death coming close and decided to write down everything before silence swallowed his voice forever. His words carry the urgency of someone who knows his time is measured in days, not decades, and the clarity of someone who spent a lifetime watching how seeds rebuild what life has worn down. Today, humanity suffers a kind of damage the ancients did not know: invisible inflammation that ages organs long before their time, exhaustion that sleep no longer fixes, illnesses that appear without warning and settle in the body like unwanted guests who refuse to leave. The modern body has forgotten how to regenerate. It has lost a wisdom that once operated as naturally as drawing breath. What you are about to hear is not decoration or metaphor. If you choose to live it, it could quietly change the way your body works from the inside out. These are not empty promises, not miraculous cures in pretty wrapping. They are the teachings of a man who dedicated his life to understanding the secret language of seeds. A man who placed his hands on the sick and watched bodies respond when they were finally given what they needed. A man who, from the depth of forgotten centuries, speaks now as if speaking directly to you. These are the words of the last healer of the Essenes. Chapter 1. The Seed of Life. Sesame. When I was a boy, my master led me to the edge of a cliff where our community kept its granaries carved into the rock. The sun poured itself over the desert in a blinding sheet of light. The air shimmered with midday heat. He asked me to stretch out my hand. Into my palm he placed seeds so small I almost lost them in the lines of my skin. They were the color of sand, of weathered bone, of everything that survives long after more fragile things have disappeared. "Open, Sesame," my master said. He wasn't speaking about wooden doors or stone gates. He was speaking about doors inside the human body. Doors that stay closed until something wise enough and simple enough comes along to wake them up. Sesame was the first seed I learned not just to eat, but to honor. Merchants carried it to us from lands where the rivers flooded every year and left behind a rich black mud that could make anything grow. But sesame didn't need that rich mud. It rose out of poor soil, clung to dry hillsides, stubbornly took root in places where most plants surrendered. That resilience, my master taught me, was not just a story about the plant. It was a force that passed to those who ate it. For years, I watched the elders of our community begin their mornings with sesame. They ground the tiny seeds in stone mortars until they turned into a fragrant golden paste, then spread it on coarse barley bread. Some mixed it with honey, others preferred it plain, letting the nutty, earthy taste linger in their mouths before swallowing. These elders lived more years, and lived them with more strength than anyone I met in nearby villages. We called the sesame seed an energetic gate because it carried something the body recognized the moment it arrived. Something that switched on processes that had gone dormant. Tissues that had started to weaken found in sesame the building blocks they needed to renew themselves. Bones beginning to hollow like old stone absorbed its minerals and slowly regained density. Skin that had dulled and dried seemed to remember how to repair and glow again. I saw men arrive at our community bent and broken, dragging their feet after years of labor beneath the unforgiving sun, unable to straighten their backs. After 3 moons of taking sesame every single day, they walked upright, their faces filled out, their eyes cleared. It was not magic, it was memory. The body remembered what it was designed to do once it finally received what it had been missing. Sesame strengthens what time and neglect weaken, muscles shrinking from disuse, joints complaining at every movement, energy that once overflowed and now barely suffices to get through a single day. This tiny seed carries oils the body absorbs with ease, and minerals that travel straight to the places where they are needed most. A concentrated life force hidden in something small enough to rest in the crack of a fingernail. But sesame also opens doors that can't be seen in an anatomy scroll. Again and again, I observed that those who ate sesame regularly developed a different kind of clarity. Thoughts that had been tangled in confusion began to line up. Choices that once felt impossible to make became obvious. It was as if the seed helped cleanse not only the tissues, but also the mind that lives inside them. My master taught me that sesame should never be eaten absent-mindedly, as something you toss into your mouth while thinking of other things. Each seed was a gift from the earth. Each carried ancestral instructions on how to endure dryness, hunger, and harsh conditions. By eating it with awareness, we absorbed not only nutrients but also that knowledge. We became a little tougher, a little more optimistic, a little more prepared for whatever life had in store. I write this now because I know the world has turned its back on seeds. People chase complicated treatments while simple answers sit on their kitchen shelves. They search for rare substances from distant places, while the earth quietly offers everything necessary for repair and balance. Sesame still grows. It remains available, waiting for eyes and hearts willing to recognize it for what it truly is. It is the first of the 12 sacred seeds. The gate that must swing open before the others can fully do their work. It is the foundation on which the whole house of regeneration is built. Whoever begins with sesame begins well, and whoever begins well has already walked half the journey. If there is a single lesson the seed of life wants to impress upon you, it is this: your body is not your enemy, and it is not broken beyond repair. It is waiting for you to remember that strength is built from small, consistent choices, not grand gestures made once and forgotten. Sesame is not just a food, it is a daily decision to support your bones, your muscles, your mind. No one else can open that door for you. You can keep ignoring what your body is quietly asking for, or you can take responsibility and begin offering it what it needs to rebuild itself. As you taste each seed, ask yourself, what other simple truths have I been overlooking? Where else in my life have I forgotten that I am capable of renewal? Your regeneration does not begin in a hospital or in a miracle cure. It begins in your hand, with a seed, and in your heart, with a choice. Chapter 2: The Seed of Fire. Black mustard. There comes a season in every life when a strange coldness moves in, not the cold of winter wind or snow on stone, but a deeper chill that settles behind the ribs. It dims your will. It turns the days into a mechanical routine. It makes your hands feel weak and your heart forget why it used to beat with enthusiasm. I met that inner cold when I was young, and it was black mustard that led me back to the fire I had lost. I was 19 when a violent fever pinned me to my bed for 40 days and 40 nights. The healers of our community did everything they knew how to do. Hot poultices of herbs, bitter infusions that burned the tongue, whispered prayers from dawn until the sky glittered with stars. I survived. My body remained on this side of the veil, but something in me did not return whole. I rose from my bed like an old man at the end of his years. Without strength, without warmth, without that restless spark that makes a young man want to run, to build, to love, to dare. My flesh had outrun death, but my spirit still seemed trapped in its shadow. My master watched me in silence for many weeks. He did not rush. He did not pity me. Then one morning he handed me a small cloth pouch. Inside were tiny black seeds, almost invisible, like bits of night scattered in my palm. I bit into one. A sharp heat shot up through my nose into my eyes, as if a hidden flame had been lit in my head. These seeds, my master said, carry the fire you left behind in your illness, but you must learn to welcome it without letting it burn you. Only then will you be able to reclaim what the fever stole. Black mustard does not tolerate impatience. Whoever swallows too much, too soon feels its power as punishment instead of blessing. The stomach burns, the throat protests, the body tries to push out what it was actually meant to receive with gratitude. My master began me with 3 seeds. Just 3 tiny black dots, chewed slowly until their heat spread through my tongue and down my throat. 3 seeds that lit a faint flame inside. 3 seeds that would eventually give me my life back. For weeks, I noticed no change. I dragged myself through each day as if pulling a cart of stones, feeling hollowed out and used up. But my master insisted, be patient. A fire that matters is not built in an instant. Fire needs steady fuel. Small daily offerings accumulate until the flame can stand on its own. Hurry is the enemy of regeneration. The body heals according to its own time, not according to our anxiety. In the 2nd month, something shifted. One morning, I woke before the call. Before the first light touched the horizon, my legs wanted to move. My hands wanted to find work. There was a warmth in my chest I had not felt since before the fever. Not the burning of sickness, but the steady glow of life reclaiming its ground. Black mustard awakens what has fallen asleep. Blood that barely reached my fingers and toes began to flow there again with purpose and force. The cold that had settled in my limbs started to melt, not because a blanket wrapped me from the outside, but because my body remembered how to generate its own heat from within. That is the true promise of the seed of fire. Over the decades, I have used black mustard to awaken countless souls who had lost their inner flame. Men crushed by disappointment who could no longer see a reason to try. Women whose pain had reduced them to a shadow of who they once were. Elders whose warmth had dwindled to a fragile ember. In each of them, the seed of fire did what it was created to do. I watched the spark they believed gone forever catch again and slowly grow into a flame. But the fire of mustard is not only physical. This seed strengthens courage. It fuels determination. It makes people willing to face hardship without running from it. Those who take it consistently often find themselves speaking more truth, defending what matters to them, rising from each fall with more resolve than before. Inner fire lights up both the flesh and the soul. The ancients knew that fire was sacred. They lit it in temples, protected it in lamps, and commanded that it must never be allowed to go out. But many forgot that the most important flame is not on an altar of stone. It burns, or flickers, inside the human body. When that fire dies, no amount of ritual can take its place, yet a simple black seed can help coax it back. Mustard grows wild in the fields around our land. Birds ignore it. Its taste is too fierce. Animals avoid it. Only humans have learned how to tame its fire and turn it into medicine. How to convert what burns into what heals. I write these words with hands that still hold warmth despite all my years. Hands that have soothed pain and rekindled life in bodies that were almost ashes. And it all began the morning my master gave me a little sack of black seeds and taught me a simple, life-changing truth. Lost fire can be found again. The second sacred seed is the spark that illuminates everything that follows. Without inner fire, the other seeds cannot complete their work. That is why mustard appears early on this path and why its power must be respected before you continue. Whoever keeps a flame alive inside has everything necessary to regenerate. Whoever has allowed that flame to go out must first come here to relight it. The seed of fire asks you a direct, uncomfortable question. Where have you allowed your inner flame to die down? You can blame your past, your illnesses, your losses, or the people who hurt you. And maybe all of that is true, but truth is not the same as destiny. Black mustard reminds you that your vitality is not a gift the world hands you. It is a fire you choose to tend. No one else can chew those seeds for you. No one else can decide that your life is worth rekindling. If you feel cold inside, emotionally, mentally, physically, let that discomfort wake you up, not shut you down. Choose to become the kind of person who rebuilds their fire seed by seed, day by day. Your future strength begins with the moment you stop expecting someone to rescue you and start taking responsibility for the flame that is already yours to protect. Chapter 3. The Seed of Silence. Flaxseed noise does not always come from outside. There is an inner noise almost everyone carries, but few know how to name. It is the noise of a body that cannot rest, of intestines that growl instead of whisper, of a mind that cannot find peace because the belly itself knows no peace. My master used to say that true silence begins in the depths of the body, and that without that silence no deep healing is possible. The seed that teaches the body how to be quiet again is flax. I remember a woman who arrived from a distant city, crossing harsh terrain for many days. Her face carried the marks of long suffering. She did not sleep more than a few hours each night. She never truly rested. Her belly was a battleground. Pains attacked without warning. Bloating made her look pregnant when she was not. The noises from within embarrassed her whenever she was around others. She had visited every healer in her region. No one had given her lasting relief. My master listened without interrupting. Then he asked her to show her tongue. It was covered in a thick white layer, as if something spoiled and stagnant had taken up residence inside her. He asked what she ate. Soft white bread made from refined wheat, salty meats, heavy wine, too few vegetables, no seeds at all. My master nodded, not surprised. "Your body has forgotten silence," he said. "We will remind it." He handed her a bag of flaxseed. Small, smooth seeds the color of wet earth after a storm. Then he taught her how to prepare them. Soak a small portion overnight in clean water. By morning, the water would have transformed into a thick, almost gelatinous liquid. That liquid was the medicine. She was to drink it on an empty stomach, before any other food. Every morning without fail, she did as she was told. The first days were uncomfortable. Her body, addicted to chaos, resisted the new order flax was trying to introduce, but by the end of the first week, something began to shift. The pains came less often. The bloating eased. The embarrassing noises softened from loud outbursts to gentle murmurs, and then to a kind of peace. After a month, she looked like a different woman. The tightness of constant suffering had left her face. Her eyes shone with a clarity and calm that probably hadn't been there since she was a child. Flax cleanses without violence. That is its greatest virtue. Some plants purge the body with force, emptying everything, the harmful and the helpful alike, leaving the person drained and fragile. Flax works differently. It lovingly coats the inner walls of the intestines with a protective layer, giving damaged areas room and time to heal. It draws out what needs to leave without harming what should remain. It is gentle purification. It is cleaning guided by kindness. Inside flaxseed is what the ancients called the oil of silence. An oil that calms the invisible inflammation tormenting so many modern bodies. Inflammation you cannot see but feel as constant discomfort, unexplained fatigue, aches that come and go without a pattern. That oil seeps into the tissues and reminds them what peace feels like. Yet the silence flax brings is not confined to the belly. Over many years, I have seen that those who take this seed regularly develop a mental quiet they never had before. Thoughts that used to crash into each other begin to find order. Worries that spun endlessly in circles either find answers or simply lose their power and fade. It is as if the silence in the gut rises up to the mind and blesses it too. My master taught that the intestines and the brain are like siblings. What troubles one disturbs the other. A belly at war produces a mind at war. A belly at peace opens the door for a mind that can finally rest. Our community lived by that wisdom for generations. Only now is modern science beginning to give it new names and long explanations. We simply lived it. Flax must be used with intention. It is not a snack to be chewed absent-mindedly like nuts shared around a fire. It is a remedy to be prepared. It must be soaked, allowed to release its mucilage, that gelatinous substance which holds its deepest power. Whoever swallows dry flax without this preparation loses much of its gift. Whoever honors the process receives the full medicine. We also taught that flax works best on an empty stomach. When there is no food competing for attention, the intestinal walls are exposed and ready. The mucilage can coat them from end to end, like a soothing balm laid directly onto a clean wound. Absorption is complete. The effect is profound. I have watched flax bring peace where nothing else could. Intestines that had been in open rebellion for years finally surrendered to calm. Chronic constipation that no other plant could move softened under its patient influence. Diarrhea that had reduced the sick to weakness began to stabilize. Flax does not force. Flax persuades. It does not dominate the body. It reminds the body of its own design. This is the third sacred seed. The seed that creates the silence in which true healing can unfold. No one regenerates in the middle of constant inner noise. No one rebuilds while the body is shouting. Silence is the room where life repairs itself. Flax is the key that opens the door to that room. The fire already burns within you. Now you need quiet to hear what that fire is trying to tell you. The seed of silence invites you to look honestly at the noise you carry inside. How many of your worries, your fears, your dark thoughts are simply echoes of a body that has been inflamed and ignored for too long? It is easy to blame your mind, your personality, or even fate. It is harder and more powerful to admit that your daily choices are either feeding chaos or feeding peace. Flaxseed is not a miracle that erases responsibility. It is an opportunity. Each time you prepare it with care and drink it with awareness, you are saying to your body, I hear you. I am willing to change. From that willingness, a new life can begin. one where you no longer accept constant discomfort as normal, and where you choose, day by day, to build a quieter, clearer, more conscious you from the inside out. Chapter 4. The Seed of the Heart. Pomegranate. In our community, there was a saying the elders repeated whenever someone's health began to crumble. Every disease begins in the heart. They weren't talking only about the organ you can touch with a surgeon's hand, but about something far deeper. The invisible center of a human life, the place where courage, joy, and purpose are born. From that hidden center, life is distributed to every corner of the body. When that center weakens, everything else starts to fray, and the seed that guards that sacred center is the pomegranate. The first time I opened a pomegranate, I was 7 years old. My mother split the fruit before me with a stone blade, and suddenly the rough skin gave way to a secret world. Inside were hundreds of glistening red jewels, each seed wrapped in its own drop of scarlet juice, like a chest full of tiny rubies. My mother told me that every seed represented a heartbeat, that eating pomegranate was like giving the heart extra beats, and that those who ate it often extended their lives because they extended the heart's capacity to keep beating strong. For years, I took this as a beautiful story meant to charm a child, a legend to make us eat fruit we might otherwise ignore. Only when I began my training as a healer did I understand how much truth hid in that children's tale. I began to observe what pomegranate did inside the bodies of those who took it seriously. I saw elders whose legs had turned dark and swollen from poor circulation gradually regain the warm, pink tones of health. I saw men who gasped for air after climbing a small hill walk, with steady breath after months of drinking pomegranate juice. I saw women whose blood had grown thick and sluggish reclaim a vitality they believed lost forever. The Egyptians called pomegranate the blood of the earth. We reverenced it in the same way. Its deep red color is no accident. Nature labels her medicines with colors and shapes for those wise enough to learn the code. The crimson of the pomegranate announces its partnership with human blood. What looks like plant blood nourishes, cleans, and revitalizes animal blood. This is one of the oldest principles of plant healing. Like helps like. My master taught me that pomegranate works on 3 levels at once. First, it cleanses the channels through which blood travels. Over the years, arteries narrow and clog, like rivers slowly choked by sediment. Inside those vessels, deposits build up layer upon layer. Pomegranate acts as a gentle but persistent stream of cleaners. It doesn't scrape violently. It dissolves slowly. The deposits thin. The passage widens. Blood begins to flow again with the freedom of youth. Second, pomegranate strengthens the walls of those vessels. Arteries that had become rigid like dry twigs regain flexibility. Veins that had softened into swollen, visible ropes under the skin recover tone and strength. The entire transport network, arteries, veins, capillaries, begins to rejuvenate. It becomes more resilient, more elastic, more capable of carrying life for many additional years. Third, pomegranate purifies the blood itself. It does not only care for the pipes, it transforms the water running through them. Impurities the body had been unable to remove encounter in pomegranate, an uncompromising enemy. Its compounds neutralize, transform, and escort them out. What remains is cleaner, brighter, more energetic blood. Blood better able to carry oxygen and nourishment to every cell that waits like a hungry child. Over decades, I witnessed what I can call only resurrections thanks to this fruit. Men whose hearts stumbled and skipped like a drum played with no rhythm found their beat again after consuming pomegranate for several moons. Women whose faces had taken on a gray, tired cast from poor circulation bloomed with a soft, rosy color. as if spring had quietly returned to their cheeks. I do not need to exaggerate. What I tell you is what my eyes have seen again and again. But pomegranate does not stop with the physical heart. It has a mysterious effect on the emotional heart as well. I began to notice this later in my practice, when I had witnessed enough grief, betrayal, and loss to recognize their marks. People whose hearts had been shattered, who carried disappointment so heavy they thought they would never rise again, found in pomegranate an unexpected comfort. Their memories did not disappear. Their pain did not magically vanish, but something shifted. The pain stopped ruling their every thought. They discovered space inside themselves to keep living, to feel something other than sorrow, to risk loving again. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe a body that is well nourished gives the mind a better chance to heal. Maybe clean blood carries more oxygen to the brain, and oxygen thins out the fog of emotional darkness. I do not pretend to know the exact mechanism. What I know is simple. It works, and I have seen it work too often to ignore. Pomegranate is best consumed whole, not as juice alone. Even though the juice is powerful, the seeds themselves carry oils and subtle compounds the liquid does not contain by itself. Chewing the seeds and swallowing the crunchy core together with the juice means receiving the medicine in full. Many people spit out the seeds because they find them inconvenient or unfamiliar. Those people throw away half the gift they were just given. We also taught that pomegranate is at its strongest in its own season. When the fruit ripens naturally under the autumn sun, its healing compounds reach their peak. Pomegranates bought out of season, carried across long distances, still help. But not with the same depth. Whoever can wait for the right season should wait. Patience is one of the secret tools of every good healer. This is the fourth sacred seed. The seed that protects the central engine from which all life flows. Without a strong heart, the other seeds cannot distribute their gifts. Blood is the river that carries each benefit to its destination, and pomegranate keeps that river clean, clear, and powerful, reaching every hidden corner of the body that waits quietly for nourishment. The one who cares for his heart is, whether he knows it or not, caring for everything else at the same time, and the pomegranate is the most loyal guardian that heart will ever know. The seed of the heart speaks to you in simple, uncompromising terms. If you neglect your heart, both the one that beats in your chest and the one that feels in your soul, you neglect your entire life, your circulation, your energy, your capacity to love and be present all begin from that center. Pomegranate is not a magic shortcut. It is a daily reminder that you are responsible for the state of your own heart. Every time you choose what to eat, how to move, how long to stay angry, you are either strengthening or weakening that sacred center. So ask yourself, what am I feeding my heart today? Bitterness or renewal? Stagnation or flow? Do not wait for illness to force this question on you. Wake up now. Take responsibility now. Let each seed you chew be a small promise you make to yourself. I will guard my heart because my whole life flows from it. Chapter 5. The Seed of the Inner Eye. Black cumin. Among all the seeds our community revered, there was one we considered the most sacred. It wasn't because it was the strongest in the physical body. Though its physical power is immense, it was because this seed seemed to bridge two worlds, the seen and the unseen. The elders called it the seed that sees the invisible. The healers called it the key of the inner eye. The rest of the world knows it by a simpler name, black cumin. We knew it as the forgotten gift God left in the earth for humans to discover when they were ready. My initiation as a healer included a test centered around this small, dark seed. a test I can still feel in my bones whenever I recall it. My master led me to a cave high in the mountains, a place where our community held its most secret ceremonies, far from curious eyes. He asked me to fast for 3 days, drinking only clear water from a spring that ran through the rock. Hunger stripped away my usual distractions. My senses felt sharpened, my mind bare. On the 3rd day, when my thoughts had grown quiet and my body felt light, he placed 7 black cumin seeds in my hand. Chew them very slowly, he instructed. Do not swallow until they have completely dissolved in your mouth. Then sit in silence. Do not try to create anything. Just observe what comes. What came cannot be described with ordinary words. It was not a flood of colorful visions like those produced by certain hallucinogenic plants. It was gentler and yet more profound. A clarity, a sensation that I could perceive beneath the surface of things. It was as if someone had wiped fog from a window I did not know existed. When my master returned to the cave hours later, I knew what he was going to say before he spoke, not because I could read his thoughts, but because something inside me had awakened. An ability to sense the intention behind his movements, the truth under his words. Black cumin had opened doors of perception that are usually bolted shut. That is its spiritual function, the one our community valued above every other. Yet this same seed works powerfully in the physical body. Over the years, I have come to believe that these two functions are not separate. Spiritual clarity and physical health are twin reflections of the same reality. A sick body clouds perception. Clear perception often leads to more healing choices. As a healer, I used black cumin to strengthen what the Romans call the body's defense system. That invisible network of guardians that detect and fight invaders carried by air, water, or food. When this system grows weak, the body collapses under every threat. When it is strong, many of those same threats pass through without leaving any mark at all. I have seen epidemics sweep entire villages and then mysteriously stop at the doors of those who consumed black cumin regularly. Not in every case. We are not gods, and no seed can grant immortality. But the contrast was sharp enough for me to devote years of my life to studying this seed and its effects, and to include it in almost every treatment I designed. No matter what illness I was facing, black cumin also brings peace where there is dangerous confusion. Some illnesses arise when the body turns its own weapons against itself. The defense system, unable to distinguish between friend and enemy, starts to attack healthy tissues like a sentry gone mad. I have seen joints destroyed by that internal war. I have seen skin covered in sores because the body rejected itself. I have seen intestines inflamed for no clear reason, as if the body had forgotten which parts belonged to it. In such cases, black cumin behaved like a wise teacher. It did not simply push the defenses higher or crush them lower. It guided them. It reminded that inner army of its correct mission. It calmed what was overactive without making it weak. It strengthened what was too passive without making it reckless. This delicate balancing act is something very few plants can achieve. Many can stimulate the immune system. Many can suppress it. Black cumin seems able to do both, shifting its role according to what the body needs. My master used to say that this seed carries within it the very blueprint of creation. That when the Creator fashioned the human body, he left in black cumin the instructions for repair. According to him, taking this seed is like giving your cells a copy of their original design and saying, "Remember who you are and how you're meant to function." I cannot prove whether this story is literally true, but I have witnessed enough inexplicable recoveries not to dismiss the idea. How black cumin is taken matters deeply. Whole seeds can be chewed, but they release their power slowly. like a fire that smolders. The oil pressed from these seeds is more concentrated, more immediate. For decades, I prescribed a small spoonful of black cumin oil each morning, usually mixed with honey to soften its intense, bitter taste. The results spoke louder than any theory. We also used black cumin externally, rubbed into the skin. Its oil eased deep pains and soothed swollen joints. It relaxed muscles that refused to let go of tension. It calmed nerves that screamed pain signals without any visible cause. I saw elders who could barely walk take steps again after weeks of consistent application. Yet, even while I watched all these changes in the body, I never forgot the seed's higher calling. Every time I recommended black cumin, whether for a cough or a swollen knee, a part of me remembered that cave and the quiet shock of expanded perception. The sense of being connected to something wider than my small personal story. Black cumin does not only heal flesh, it awakens a part of the soul most people never meet. That is why we called it the fifth sacred seed. The ancient Egyptians said it heals everything except death. Perhaps they exaggerated. Perhaps they were closer to the truth than we realize. What I know for certain is this: I have never met another seed that contains so much concentrated power, both physical and spiritual, in something so small. Whoever seeks healing of the body will find in black cumin a fierce ally. Whoever seeks healing of the spirit will find a doorway they did not even know was there. The seed of the inner eye challenges you to ask a question most people spend their lives avoiding. What have I been unwilling to see? In my body, in my relationships, in myself. Black cumin is not only about boosting your immunity, it is an invitation to stop living on autopilot. When you choose to work with this seed, you are saying, I want to see more clearly, and I am willing to face what clarity shows me. That choice is yours alone. No healer, no teacher, no seed can force it on you. Take responsibility for your health as more than the absence of symptoms. Let your body's strength and your soul's honesty grow together. As your perception sharpens, you will understand that every decision, what you eat, how you rest, what you believe about yourself, is either building your life or quietly destroying it. The seed opens the door. You are the one who must walk through Chapter 6, the seed of the wind. Fenugreek. The human body is movement. Blood pulses through veins. Air enters and leaves the lungs. Food travels from the mouth to the depths of the intestines, where it's transformed into energy and substance. When all this movement flows freely, health shines quietly. When it slows or stops, disease takes root. My master used to compare the body to the desert wind. When the wind blows unimpeded, it cleans the sky, carries away dust, and refreshes everything it touches. When the wind falls still, the air grows heavy, thick, hard to breathe, filled with what should have been carried away long ago. The seed that returns movement to a body that has become too still is fenugreek. I remember a merchant who arrived in our community walking as if his own body were a burden he could hardly carry. Once, he had been prosperous. His caravans crossed the desert loaded with spices, fabrics, and precious goods. But something inside him had changed. His belly had swollen as though full of rocks. Digestion, which should be a quiet, invisible process, had become a daily ordeal. After every meal came hours of pain. Cramping, burning, heavy fullness. Gas embarrassed him in public. He felt as though his food turned against him the moment he swallowed it. The heaviness drained his strength. He could no longer ride for days or negotiate with the clear mind he once had. He lost his caravans because he could not travel. He lost his wealth because he could no longer trade. Worst of all, He lost his joy because he could not remember what it felt like to live without constant discomfort. My master listened as the merchant described his suffering, then asked him to recount his daily meals. The man confessed he ate fast, without chewing well, shoving large bites into his mouth while arguing prices and signing agreements. He admitted drinking too much wine to try to calm his racing mind and restless nerves. He admitted that for years he had barely walked 100 steps a day, always sitting in carts or on cushions while animals did the moving for him. "Your body has forgotten how to move," my master told him. "On the outside and on the inside, we are going to remind it." He prescribed fenugreek, seeds soaked in water overnight and taken in the morning along with the water in which they had softened. He warned the merchant that the taste was bitter and that many people quit the treatment just because they did not like that bitterness on their tongue. But the merchant was desperate. He had already tried nearly everything else. He accepted the harsh taste as the price of a possible new life. The first week was difficult. Fenugreek stirred things that had been motionless for years. The merchant spent much of his time going back and forth to the latrine. His body expelled residues that seemed as if they had been stored since his youth. Heavy, foul-smelling waste he could hardly believe had been hiding inside him. My master told him this was not a punishment. It was good news. "The wind has started to blow," he said, "and what is coming out now is what should have left your body long ago." After a month, the change was undeniable. The merchant's belly had shrunk visibly, nearly half its previous size. He could eat without fear. He could walk across the compound without running out of breath. Energy that had vanished returned like water refilling a dry well. With time, he regained enough strength to organize a small caravan, then a larger one. A few years later, I heard that he had rebuilt his fortune. But more important than that, he had rebuilt his health. He never again traveled without carrying a pouch of fenugreek seeds among his goods. Fenugreek ignites what the ancients called digestive fire, the inner flame that enables the stomach and intestines to turn food into fuel instead of letting it rot. When that fire weakens, food sits heavy and undigested. It ferments instead of transforming. The result is gas, pain, bloating, and a constant sense of being burdened from the inside. Fenugreek fans that inner fire back to life without turning it into a destructive blaze. It restores it to its natural strength. But the movement fenugreek brings is not limited to digestion. This seed seems to awaken the entire metabolism, the body's ability to convert what we eat into usable energy rather than storing it as excess or letting it become waste. People who felt mysteriously exhausted, who slept through the night and woke up tired, who needed stimulants to drag themselves through the day, often found in fenugreek a remedy that required no artificial energy. Their bodies simply remembered how to draw power from food again. I also noticed that fenugreek helped those who struggled with sugar. Some people's blood becomes too sweet after eating, leading to wild spikes of energy followed by crushing crashes, as if they were forever riding a storm-tossed ship. Fenugreek gently smoothed these waves. It stabilized what had been chaotic. It brought the body back to a more constant rhythm, allowing a steadier, calmer way of living. The women in our community cherished fenugreek for reasons of their own. Mothers who could not produce enough milk for their infants discovered that this seed acted as a soft but reliable stimulant. After a few days of taking it, their milk flowed more abundantly. Fenugreek also eased menstrual pain and helped balance the shifts that came with certain phases of the month. It was as if the seed had an intuitive understanding of the female body and its cycles, a sympathy other plants did not quite possess. My master insisted that fenugreek must be taken consistently to reveal its full power. It was not a rescue medicine to be taken only when pain was at its worst. It was a companion to be woven into daily routine, especially in the morning. Its effect builds slowly, layer upon layer. Those who stayed with it for months experienced transformations that those who tried it for a few days could never imagine. The bitterness, he said, was part of the teaching. Sweet flavors soothe and lull the body. Bitter ones wake it up. Fenugreek does not enter politely to please the tongue. It enters like a messenger announcing, "I am here to work." Some people added honey to soften the bitterness. It still worked. But those who wanted the full experience embraced the taste as part of their healing. This is the sixth sacred seed. The seed that restores proper movement to a body that has become stagnant. Without internal movement, nutrients never reach the cells that are starving for them, and toxins never leave the places where they are poisoning you. The body stops being a river and becomes a swamp. And in swamps, life does not flourish. It decays. Whoever feels their body has stopped, whoever notices their energy is stuck, their digestion confused, their motivation dulled, will find in fenugreek the wind they need to start moving again. The wind has already begun to blow. Your work is to let it clear out what needs to go and to stop clinging to what is better released. The seed of the wind reminds you of a hard truth. Life is motion, and stagnation is a choice, not just a fate. Your habits, how you eat, how you sit, how long you stay glued to your worries. Either keep your inner rivers flowing or turn them into swamps. Fenugreek is more than a bitter seed. It is a symbol of your willingness to change direction. Each time you take it, you are choosing movement over numbness, cleansing over accumulation, responsibility over excuses. Ask yourself honestly, where in my life have I allowed things to pile up? In my body, my emotions, my relationships, what am I refusing to let go of? Do not wait until pain forces you to move. Begin now. Let this seed be a daily reminder that you are not a passive victim of stagnation. You are the one who decides whether the wind will blow through your life again. Chapter 7. The Seed of Chia. In our community, there was a time of day we guarded almost like a secret. It was not noon, when the sun shouts from the top of the sky, nor midnight, when darkness reigns without rival. It was the breath before sunrise. That thin line of time when the darkness begins to loosen its grip, but light has not yet claimed its throne. The elders called that fragile instant the crack between worlds. They said that in those few minutes, the universe forgets its boundaries. Old stories can end, new ones can begin, and the energy of creation itself is closest to those who know how to open their hands and receive it. They also said there was a seed capable of catching that dawn light and storing it, like a jar filled with first morning sun, to pour later into the human body. That seed is Chia. The first rumors of Chia reached our desert, not through books but through dust-covered travelers from lands so distant we could barely picture them. They spoke of peoples beyond the great ocean who cherished a tiny seed, said to sustain a warrior for days with no other food. They told stories of runners who crossed valleys and mountains, their only provisions a small leather pouch filled with these seeds. We assumed the tales were stretched by distance and time. Travelers always embellish. Hunger, danger, and the long road can turn small truths into legends. But then, one day, the seeds themselves arrived. I remember the first time I held Chia. My master had managed to obtain a modest handful. Far too precious to be wasted, he poured some into my palm, tiny, speckled seeds, nearly weightless, as if they were more idea than matter. He asked me to place a spoonful into a bowl of water and leave it until the following morning. At dawn, when the first light touched the surface of the bowl, what I saw amazed me. The water had thickened into a clear gel. Each seed floated inside its own halo of transparency, like stars hanging in a liquid night. "Drink," my master said, "and after that, eat nothing until the sun goes down. Observe, but do not complain. Let your body tell you the truth." I obeyed, more out of respect than conviction. I expected hours of gnawing emptiness, dizziness. The usual arguments of a stomach denied its routine. But what unfolded that day overturned almost everything I thought I knew about hunger and strength. The hours moved slowly, as they always do when one pays close attention. Yet weakness never came. My stomach did not claw at me. There was no sharp emptiness, no fog falling over my thoughts. I spent the entire day copying manuscripts, a task that demands focus, precision, and patience. Instead of growing dull, my mind remained clear, almost sharpened. When dusk arrived and I finally sat to eat, I expected to be ravenous, but the wild hunger I was used to after fasting never showed up. I was hungry, yes, but calm. It felt as if Chia had fed something deeper than my stomach, as if it had gone straight to the source from which all energy arises. Chia expands, my master said later, when I tried to explain what I had felt, and that is the best word for it. Chia expands in water, swelling many times its size. It expands in the stomach, creating a gentle, lasting fullness that endures for hours. It expands energy, releasing it slowly through the day instead of causing sharp peaks and deep crashes. And it expands consciousness, keeping the mind awake when it would normally be dulled by lack of food or excess of it. I began prescribing Chia to those trapped in a prison few can see from the outside. Constant, unrelenting hunger. These were people whose appetite felt like a bottomless pit. They ate until shame burned their faces, yet never felt truly satisfied. Their bodies stored weight, while their spirits sank under the weight of guilt and self-hatred. Chia taught them a different kind of fullness. It did not numb hunger artificially, it answered it. A quiet, steady satiety rose from within, not from piles of food on the plate. For many, this was the first time in their lives they knew what it meant to feel satisfied without being stuffed. I also recommended Chia to those who needed sustained strength, laborers who collapsed before noon, students whose minds wandered after a short while, elders who could no longer rely on their energy lasting through the day. In all of them, Chia behaved like an internal sunrise. It was as if the dawn itself had decided to rise inside their chests, shedding light where previously there had been only heaviness and exhaustion. Chia also brings water to the body in a way plain water rarely does. We say the human body is mostly water, yet much of what we drink rushes through us like rain on stone. Barely absorbed, barely used, Chia changes that story. When the seeds are soaked, they release a gelatinous substance, a soft mucilage that binds to water. That mucilage becomes a vehicle, a delivery system that carries water deep into tissues that have been thirsty for years. I have watched dry, cracked skin soften and regain its suppleness after weeks of daily Chia. I have seen dull eyes regain brightness, as if someone had polished the pupils from the inside. Even those whose bodies had been worn down by heat, work, or neglect seemed to hold on to hydration more easily, as if their cells finally remembered how to drink. My master considered Chia especially sacred in times of scarcity. When caravans were delayed, when the harvest failed, when hunting brought back little, we relied on Chia not just to survive, but to survive with dignity. With clear thoughts, steady hands, and enough strength to keep caring for one another. We kept jars of chia stored away, as others keep coins or jewels. For us, these tiny seeds were a more reliable form of wealth. Its preparation is not complicated, but it does demand attention. Chia must soak for at least 4 hours. Ideally from sunset to sunrise. Cold water is enough, though warm water coaxes the gel out faster. How much water you use matters. Too much, and you get a thin liquid that barely satisfies. Too little, and the seeds cannot fully open and release their hidden gift. We used a simple measure, 1 spoonful of seeds to 1 cup of water. The result should be thick yet drinkable. More elixir than soup. Some of our people added juice from fruits to sweeten the taste. Others stirred in honey and spices, turning it into a drink that was both medicine and delight. As for me, I preferred the simplest version, chia and water, nothing more. The pure seed, the pure gift, with nothing standing between the remedy and the one receiving it. This is the 7th sacred seed, the seed that catches the first light of the day and pours it into the human body when it is most needed. Without steady energy, there can be no true regeneration. A body swinging wildly between exhaustion and frenzy cannot spare resources for healing. It is too busy surviving its own instability. First comes balance. First comes a stable, reliable flow of strength. Chia provides exactly that. A quiet, powerful stability that allows the body to finally rebuild instead of constantly reacting. Whoever begins the day with chia begins the day with dawn inside. And whoever walks through life carrying dawn within them has enough light to face any darkness that might rise to meet them. The seed of chia invites you to rethink what you call energy. Is it the frantic rush that leaves you drained and empty? Or is it a calm, steady flame that stays with you through the whole day? You can continue to live on spikes of sugar, stimulants, and exhaustion, blaming your schedule, your age, or your luck. Or you can take responsibility for the way you fuel your own life. Chia is more than a fashionable seed. It is a daily choice to trade chaos for stability. Each time you prepare it, you are making a quiet declaration. I choose a different rhythm. I choose to support my body instead of sabotaging it. Let the seed of dawn remind you that real strength is not about how hard you push yourself, but about how wisely you sustain yourself. Ask yourself honestly, where in my life do I need less drama and more steadiness? Your answers and your actions will shape the person you become. Chapter 8. The Seed of the Pure Earth. Ancient quinoa. The humble will inherit the earth, our elders taught us, and they said it with the certainty of people who had watched history rise and fall without ever needing to be at its center. Among all the seeds we knew, there was one that embodied this teaching perfectly. It was not fiery like mustard, nor mysterious like black cumin. It did not stain our hands red like pomegranate or glow with sesame's quiet fame. It was small, modest, and the color of dust on a well-traveled road. The wealthy called it poor man's food, with a curled lip. The poor pressed their hands over it in gratitude, because when everything else failed, this small seed refused to abandon them. We called it the bread of the humble. The world has given it another name, quinoa. The first quinoa seeds reached our community from mountain ranges so high they seemed to scratch the belly of the sky. Travelers who crossed those ridges told us of people who lived where the air was thin enough to make strangers faint, where each step demanded effort, and where most crops surrendered to cold and altitude. Yet in that harsh place, quinoa thrived. While wheat withered and barley refused to grow, quinoa stood green against stone and snow, as if designed by the Creator to feed those who lived closer to the clouds than to the sea. My master received the first small pouch of quinoa with a reverence that puzzled me. He turned the seeds over in his palm, brought them to his nose, held them to the light. He even cracked one between his teeth and closed his eyes, as if listening to its story. "This is complete," he finally said, and his voice carried an uncharacteristic amazement. "Inside this small seed is everything a human body needs. Not almost everything, everything." He was not exaggerating. Quinoa is one of the few foods the earth offers that contains all the essential building blocks the body needs to maintain and repair itself. The raw material from which muscles, tissues, skin, hair, and nails are formed. Many grains offer some of those blocks. Quinoa offers them all. Those who built their meals around nothing but quinoa did not develop the deficiencies we saw in people who fed only on wheat or only on rice. Their bodies continued to receive what was necessary, even when their diet was monotonous. I turned to quinoa when men and women reached our gates carrying the look of famine in their eyes. Not hunger of a missed meal, or even a missed week, but hunger that had chewed away at their muscles for months or years, leaving nothing but sticks of bone wrapped in thin skin. This kind of hunger steals more than flesh. It steals glow from the eyes, color from the cheeks, fire from the voice. It makes people speak like they are already halfway into the grave. For them, quinoa was always the first food I offered, before meat, before bread, before anything rich or complex. A body battered by long hunger forgets how to handle heavy foods. Meat overwhelms such a body. Refined bread inflames it. But quinoa seems to remember how to knock gently on the door. It enters softly, the way water seeps into cracked earth. The body receives it with gratitude instead of protest. It is fully absorbed. It leaves almost no residue. It does not require much energy to be processed. It simply gives. I have seen lives turn around thanks to this seed. I choose the word resurrection carefully, and I do not use it often. But there is no other word for what I witnessed. People who looked like moving skeletons, who had quietly resigned themselves to death, began to return to themselves when quinoa became their daily bread. Week after week, their bodies rebuilt. Muscles returned to arms and legs. Skin regained its elasticity and color. Eyes that had been dull and distant started shining again, catching light like they used to. Watching them was like watching a dried plant touched by the first rain after a cruel drought. And yet, quinoa is not only for the starving. It is for anyone who wants to feed their body completely, not just fill their stomach. Our warriors ate it before long drills. Our scholars ate it before long nights of reading. Pregnant women consumed it to ensure the child within received all it needed to grow strong and whole. It was the food that fit every age and every condition, the one staple we could give anyone without fear. My master insisted that quinoa must be washed patiently before cooking. Each seed is wrapped in a natural bitterness, a protective layer that discourages birds and insects from stealing the crop. That bitterness is not poisonous, but it is unpleasant. Rinsing the seeds several times, rubbing them between the palms under flowing water, removes this cloak and reveals quinoa's true character, a mild, comforting, almost nutty taste. It is the flavor of pure nourishment, simple and honest. Cooking it is no great mystery. 2 measures of water for every one of quinoa. Bring it to a boil, then let it simmer until the water has disappeared, and each seed opens to reveal a small, pale tail. The spiral that tells you it is ready. Some in our community added salt. Others mixed quinoa with vegetables or herbs. Many ate it plain and warm, appreciating its simplicity the way one appreciates a clear sky after storms. We also discovered that ground quinoa mixed with warm water made an ideal porridge for those without teeth. Both the very old and the very young, it became the bookend of life, the first food many babies tasted after their mother's milk, and the last food many elders comfortably ate before leaving this world. In a community that honored both birth and age, that versatility made quinoa priceless. Meanwhile, in the cities, the wealthy feasted on complicated meals. Meats drowning in sauces, white breads stripped of their goodness, sweets that excited the tongue but gave nothing of substance to the body. They were impressed with their plates. We were impressed with our strength. They fell ill often and spent fortunes trying to buy back the health they had squandered. We ate humble seeds and rarely saw a healer except by choice. The very simplicity they mocked was the foundation of our endurance. This is the 8th sacred seed, the seed that offers everything the body needs to rebuild from the ground up. Without complete nourishment, regeneration is a fantasy. You may have awakened your inner fire, created silence, restored movement, and stabilized your energy. But if your body lacks the basic materials with which to build, nothing lasting can be repaired. Quinoa delivers those materials. All of them, without exception and without pretense. Whoever eats quinoa regularly eats fully, and whoever eats fully grants their body the chance to heal from the inside out, one cell at a time. The bread of the humble, we learned, is actually the bread of the truly wise. Only the wise can see that what looks simple is often what is most powerful. The seed of pure earth confronts a quiet arrogance many people carry, the belief that more complicated always means better. You can spend your life chasing exotic foods, expensive supplements, and elaborate diets, or you can ask a humbler question: is my body getting what it actually needs, or only what entertains my appetite? Quinoa is not glamorous. It does not promise instant miracles. It offers something far more valuable: completeness. When you choose this kind of nourishment, you are choosing to respect your body instead of merely indulging it. That is an act of maturity, of responsibility. Look honestly at your plate and ask, how much of this truly feeds me, and how much just distracts me? The answer will reveal not only the state of your health, but also the state of your relationship with yourself. Chapter 9. The seed of inner gold. Turmeric. There is an enemy that lives inside most human bodies, and for a long time it went unnamed. It is not a curse from the gods, not a wandering spirit, not a punishment from heaven. It is a quiet process, a slow damage. We described it as a fire that doesn't feel like fire, a low, smoldering burn that eats away at tissues while the person carrying it has no idea what is happening. Joints ache, organs weaken, minds grow cloudy. And still the cause hides beneath the surface. Modern healers have given it a name: chronic inflammation. In our community, we called it the inner enemy. And the plant that fights it best glows with the color of the midday sun. Turmeric. The first time I saw turmeric, I truly believed I was looking at ground sunlight. A spice merchant had arrived from eastern lands where the earth warms differently, and plants grow with powers we had never seen. He opened a large sack, and inside was a fine golden powder that caught the light and held it, as if someone had milled a star. My master bought the entire sack at a price that made the others whisper that he had lost his judgment. Years later, I realized he had paid almost nothing for what it could do. Strictly speaking, turmeric is not a seed. It is a root, a rhizome that grows hidden beneath the soil, far from the light that its color seems to worship. Yet in our tradition, We counted it among the sacred seeds because it is planted, it multiplies, and from its humble form springs a power to rebuild the body rivaled by few other plants. My master began his experiments with turmeric on those who suffered pain that made no sense to the eye, joints that screamed without injury, muscles throbbing after no exertion, heads pounding for days with no clear reason, skin rashes that appeared and vanished like ghosts. In all these cases, he suspected the same culprit, the inner enemy, the silent, ongoing inflammation that slowly eats away at the body's structure. The results of his trials were astonishing. Men and women who had carried pain for years began to feel relief after several weeks of taking turmeric daily. Not the thin, temporary relief that comes from herbs that simply numb the nerves, but a deeper easing, a lightening that seemed to start at the root of the problem. Turmeric does something very few remedies know how to do. It extinguishes the wrong fires without touching the right ones. The body needs certain kinds of inflammation. The heat that fights infection, heals cuts, and helps us recover when something attacks us. Most pain medicines do not distinguish between helpful and harmful fires. They pour water over all of them. Turmeric is different. It seems to recognize which flames must die and which must be allowed to burn. It calms the destructive inferno but leaves the healing glow intact. Where other substances act like clumsy soldiers, turmeric behaves like a skilled surgeon. For decades, I have used it in almost every illness, where tissue was breaking down, joints worn until bone scraped against bone, intestines so inflamed they bled, skin so raw and flaking the person wanted to hide, brains slowly losing their sharpness as invisible flames damaged delicate connections. In all these battles, turmeric has been a faithful ally. Yet there is a secret to its power. Taken alone, without thought, turmeric often passes through the body like a stranger, seen but not truly welcomed. The digestive system, left to itself, does not absorb it well. Much of its golden power leaves the body almost untouched. My master discovered, through trial and observation, that black pepper unlocked turmeric's potential. A small pinch of black pepper mixed with turmeric made a difference so large we could not ignore it. Pains eased more quickly. Swelling reduced more deeply. It was as if pepper opened a door in the intestines and said, "Let this one in." We did not know why. We only knew it worked. Much later, others would explain it with complex terms. We were content with the evidence before our eyes. We also learned that turmeric travels farther and works deeper when it rides with fat, olive oil, sesame oil, goat's milk. Any wholesome fat became a chariot that carried turmeric into the most distant corners of the body. Without fat, much of its brilliance was wasted. With fat, it reached the joints, the organs, even the brain itself. Our favorite way to take it was something we came to call golden milk. We warmed milk gently, never boiling it, and stirred in a spoonful of turmeric powder, a pinch of black pepper, and a little honey to soften the earthiness of the taste. This drink was taken before sleep. While the world was silent and the conscious mind rested, turmeric did its work. I imagined it walking through the body like a lantern bearer in the night, dousing harmful fires, soothing inflamed tissues, quietly repairing what the day had damaged. I have watched elders who were bent over in pain begin to stand taller after months of nightly golden milk. I have seen hands warped by years of inflammation become more flexible, less twisted. I have seen faces carved by constant suffering soften into expressions of peace they had not worn for decades. Turmeric does not erase all damage. Some injuries are too old, some structures too worn, but it stops the ongoing destruction. It halts the enemy's advance and gives the body space to rebuild whatever can still be saved. My master used to say turmeric was edible sunlight. Its golden color was more than decoration. It was a message. Just as the sun pushes back the darkness from the outer world, turmeric pushes back the darkness inside the body. Where there is light, shadow retreats. Where there is turmeric, destructive inflammation loses its grip. This is the 9th sacred seed. The seed, or root, that stands guard against the invisible enemy consuming so many from within. Without bringing chronic inflammation under control, regeneration is only a word. The body cannot build while something inside is constantly tearing it down. Turmeric's first gift is to stop the tearing. Its second is to help the rebuilding. Whoever takes turmeric regularly carries a kind of inner gold. No treasure chest can match. External gold can decorate, impress, or corrupt. Inner gold can heal. May your insides shine with that golden light. May the invisible enemy find in you not a helpless victim, but an opponent it cannot overcome. The seed of inner gold asks you to look beyond obvious pain and ask a deeper question. What am I allowing to slowly burn me from the inside? In my body, in my habits, in my thoughts. Turmeric is not a license to keep living carelessly while hoping a drink at night will fix everything. It is a partner, not a savior. When you choose to use it wisely, with pepper, with healthy fats, with consistency, you are declaring that you will no longer ignore the quiet damage building inside you. That same decision is needed in the rest of your life. What silent resentments, unspoken fears, or repeated choices are inflaming your days? It is your responsibility to identify them, to cool what harms you, and protect what heals you. Let turmeric remind you that true healing always begins with awareness and a decision. I will no longer consent to my own destruction. From that moment on, every small, steady choice you make becomes a piece of inner gold you are laying down inside yourself, one glowing layer at a time. Chapter 10. The Seed of the Spirit. Fig, at the very heart of our community stood a tree no one could remember planting, the oldest of the elders. Men whose faces were maps of the desert winds swore it had been there when their grandparents first came seeking refuge among these stones. Its branches stretched outward and upward like open arms raised in blessing. Its shade fell over the spot where we gathered to pray, to study, to argue over sacred texts, to laugh, to grieve. Our lives circled that place the way the planets circle the sun. It was a fig tree. To us, its fruit was not just food. It was the closest thing the earth could offer to the taste of the divine. My master told me a story his master had told him, and his master before him, a chain of voices reaching so far back that memory turns into legend. He said that when the first man was cast out of the original garden, he was told he could carry only one thing with him into exile. He did not choose gold, or tools, or weapons. He chose a fig. He knew, the story says, that inside that fruit was the memory of paradise. That as long as figs existed on earth, humanity would never be entirely cut off from the divine. I cannot tell you if this tale is historically accurate, but stories are true in more than one way. This one reveals something essential. There is a quality in the fig that goes beyond calories and sweetness, something that nourishes not only bone and blood, but also spirit. Over decades as both observer and healer, I noticed something about those who ate figs regularly. Their lives were not free of suffering. No one's is. But they carried a kind of quiet steadiness. Their eyes were softer, their reactions less frantic. It was as if they were rooted in something deeper than circumstance. Fig was a daily presence in our community. When the fruit was in season, We ate it fresh from the tree, still warm from the sun, juice dripping down our fingers. When the season passed, we dried them on woven mats beneath that same sun and stored them in clay jars for the months when the tree slept. There was not a single table in our community where you would not find figs. There was not a ceremony, joyous or solemn, where figs did not appear. When we broke a fast, the first food that touched our lips was a fig. Gentle on the stomach, sweet on the tongue, kind to the heart. When we celebrated, figs crowned our feasts like small, edible blessings. Inside each fig are hundreds of seeds, so tiny most people never really see them. Yet each of those tiny specks carries the potential of a new tree, a forest hidden in a single fruit. To us, this was a living symbol of divine generosity. The divine, my master said, does not give in crumbs. The divine gives in abundance. The fig was proof you could chew. As a healer, I came to rely on figs whenever the body needed cleansing, but was too fragile for harsh methods. There are times when violent purges do more harm than good. When the sick or the elderly cannot afford to be wrung out like cloth, the fig offered another way. It moved what needed to move without violence. It coaxed the intestines into action, drawing out what needed to be released while protecting the delicate lining. I gave figs to elders whose bowels had grown stubborn, to children whose little bellies struggled to move, to the weak whose bodies needed to eliminate toxins but could not survive stronger remedies. Again and again, the fig did its work. Gently, reliably, almost tenderly, but its gifts did not end there. Fig carries energy the way a steady river carries water. Clean, strong, consistent. Where other sweet foods produce a rush of fire followed by a collapse into ashes, figs offer something different. I watched laborers eat a few dried figs at dawn and keep their strength until dusk. I watched students chew them before long hours of study and maintain a sharpness that surprised even them. It was as if the fig understood just how much to give and when to give it, and yet, what I cherish most about the fig cannot be weighed, measured, or analyzed. It is what it does to the inner world. During seasons when I combined fig with meditation or light fasting, something in my spiritual life changed. My prayers found their path more easily. Restless, intrusive thoughts quieted down. A calm settled over me that did not depend on whether the day had gone well or badly. It felt like being wrapped from within, as if I were being held by something vast and kind. My master used to say, the fig was the food of prophets. That anyone seeking closeness with the divine should make figs a regular companion, because they tuned the subtle senses, those inner instruments that pick up truths the eyes cannot see and the ears cannot hear. I will not claim to prove that. I only know my inner life deepened when figs became a constant in my diet. My perception sharpened. My understanding softened. I felt both clearer and more compassionate toward myself and toward others. We did not limit ourselves to the fruit. The tree itself was medicine from roots to leaves. Tea made from dried fig leaves helped those struggling with unstable blood sugar. It did not magically erase their illness, but it smoothed the violent rises and crashes that made life so difficult. It gave them a more stable ground on which to live their days. Dried figs, in turn, were like concentrated sunlight. They lost water but kept everything else: minerals, sweetness, fiber, the mysterious spiritual quality we had come to depend on. Some even said that drying intensified their power, that the same blessing was packed into a smaller space. We trusted dried figs on the road, light to carry, slow to spoil, nourishing in every way. They could sustain a traveler for days with nothing more than a handful tucked into a pocket. This is the 10th sacred seed. The seed of the Spirit, the seed that bridges body and soul, without a living connection to something greater than yourself. Physical regeneration can only go so far. You can improve your muscles, your blood, your organs, but the deepest kind of healing does not happen until the Spirit says yes and joins the work. The fig extends that invitation. It sets a place at the table not just for your body, but for your soul. Whoever eats figs regularly is, in a sense, eating what the first human chose to carry out of paradise, a food that holds a memory of who we were before we forgot, and a promise of who we might become when we remember. Let the fig remind you of where you come from. Let its sweetness point you toward the sweetness waiting for you at the end of the path. If you dare to walk it awake, the seed of the Spirit speaks to the deepest part of you, the part that knows you are more than a body, more than a list of symptoms, more than your past mistakes. You can spend your life trying to fix your outer world, your diet, your routines, your appearance, and still feel empty inside. Or you can admit a simple, powerful truth. Real healing begins when body and spirit work together. Fig is not a magic shortcut to enlightenment. It is a daily reminder to feed your inner life with the same care you give your physical one. Every time you choose foods, thoughts, and practices that lift you closer to what is sacred for you, you are taking responsibility for your own wholeness. Ask yourself, what am I giving my spirit to live on? Distraction and noise, or silence, depth, and meaning? The answer is yours to change. The fig can open the door, but you are the one who must step into a life where your soul is no longer starving. Chapter 11. The Seed of the Inner Kingdom. Grape. Most people eat grapes the same way they live their lives. They savor the sweetness on the surface and spit out the core that holds real power. They enjoy the soft pulp, the burst of juice, and discard the seed as an inconvenience. Something bitter, hard, interrupting their pleasure. For years, I watched this with a quiet grief, because what they spat into the dirt was precisely the most precious part. Yes, the fruit is delicious. Yes, the fruit nourishes, but it is the seed that transforms, and transformation is what raises eating from simple survival into true regeneration. In our community, we had a saying, "The kingdom is not in the palace, but in the hidden seed." We spoke it whenever someone was distracted by appearances, whether in food, in people, or in life. The grape's flesh is the palace. Bright, attractive, inviting, but the little bitter seed is where the real kingdom lives. The kingdom of cellular renewal, of slower aging, of tissues rebuilt rather than surrendered. My master stumbled upon the power of grapeseed almost by accident. An elder of our community began to lose his sight. It did not happen overnight. It came as a slow dimming. Colors fading, edges blurring, letters dissolving into smudges. The world around him became a watercolor, left too long in the rain. He consulted every healer among us. They examined his eyes, his pulse, his tongue. Their verdict was the one all old people dread. It is age. Nothing can be done. Prepare yourself for the darkness. No one wanted to say those words, but they believed them. Everyone, that is, except the elder. There was something in him that refused to bow before what others called inevitable. He remembered something from his youth, from the faraway village where he had been born. The women there made an oil from crushed grape seeds and rubbed it into their faces. They swore it kept their skin young and firm, delaying the marks of time. If it can rejuvenate the skin, he thought, perhaps it can help the rest of me. Without telling anyone, he began a quiet experiment with himself as the subject. At every meal, he ate grapes. And this time, he did not spit out the seeds. He chewed them carefully, grit and bitterness between his teeth, until they broke down into paste, and swallowed them with the fruit. The taste was unpleasant. The seeds were hard, but the elder was stubborn. Day after day, month after month, he continued. When he finally returned to the healers, the change was so obvious they thought their eyes were playing tricks on them. The cloudiness over his vision had retreated. Colors, once washed out, had deepened again. Edges were sharper. Words on a scroll, which once appeared as meaningless stains, were legible once more. When questioned, he told them exactly what he had done. There was no miracle, only persistence. My master listened carefully, then began his own investigation with an intensity I had rarely seen. What he discovered reshaped our medical practice. Grape seeds contain powerful guardians that protect the body's most delicate structures. The tiniest blood vessels, those almost invisible threads that deliver nourishment to the eyes, the brain, the skin, and other sensitive organs. Over time, these fine vessels weaken. They become brittle, leaky, unable to carry blood to where it is most needed. Grape seeds strengthen them. They shield them from damage. They help restore flexibility and resilience. I began using grapeseed for those with circulation problems, people whose legs swelled by day's end, whose blood struggled to return from the feet to the heart, people whose hands tingled and went numb because the smallest vessels could no longer feed their fingers, people whose skin showed dark spots and fine broken veins, visible evidence of capillaries failing under pressure. Many had been told by other healers, "There is nothing to be done. Accept it." To them, grapeseed brought improvements that were not supposed to be possible, but the seed's power extended even further. Grape seeds are rich in protectors that battle the overall wear and tear we call aging. That slow breakdown of tissues and systems. They do not freeze time. Nothing does. They do not grant eternal youth. No honest healer would promise such a thing. What they do is slow down the damage time inflicts. They help the body age with dignity instead of collapsing before its years. They allow a person to grow old like a strong tree in autumn. Losing leaves, yes, but keeping a solid trunk and deep roots. Rather than a neglected house crumbling room by room, over decades, I noticed a pattern. Those who consumed grape seeds regularly looked and moved differently than their peers. Their skin kept its elasticity when others had thinned into fragile paper. Their joints bent and stretched with much more ease. Their minds remained alert and present, while others drifted into haze and confusion. Grapeseed did not make them immortal. It simply helped them stay fully themselves for longer, and that, to me, is a miracle worth respecting. We learned that how the seeds are taken makes all the difference. Chewing whole seeds works, but is bitter, gritty, and difficult. Most people give up long before the benefits appear, so we began grinding them into a fine powder, mixed with honey or fruit juice. The bitterness could be disguised. A small spoonful each day was enough to make a difference. Not overnight, but over months and years. From great quantities of seeds, we also pressed a clear, precious oil. It took a lot of work to produce very little, which made it one of our most treasured remedies. A few drops of this oil each day contained the power of hundreds of seeds. We used it both internally and externally, applied to the face, around the eyes, and on the hands. The oil soaked in and seemed to give the skin new life. Fine lines softened, dryness diminished. Again, not by magic, but by feeding tissues starved for what only this seed provided. For us, the grape itself was a symbol of transformation. The plump fruit becomes wine. Wine, in turn, becomes vinegar. Each stage has its own purpose, its own strength, but the seed remains essentially itself through all these changes. Within that tiny seed lies the potential for entire vineyards, for future harvests, for transformations that have not even begun yet. This is the 11th sacred seed. The seed that builds an inner kingdom of protection against the natural decay of time. Without such protection, the body falls apart sooner than it needs to. Delicate tissues fail long before their time. The regeneration supported by all the other seeds is wasted because the underlying structures are too fragile to sustain it. Grapeseed builds and maintains those structures. It is the mason of the inner walls, the architect of subtle defenses. It constructs the fortress in which your inner kingdom can flourish. Whoever chooses to consume grape seeds regularly is making a long-term investment in themselves. They are depositing small daily amounts into an account that will pay out over decades, not days. They are building an inner realm that no economic crisis, no external disaster, no passing fashion can take from them. A realm of protected cells, strengthened vessels, tissues that hold up under pressure where others break. Do not spit out the seed. Inside it is the kingdom you say you want. Resilience, grace, and strength that does not vanish at the first strong wind. The seed of the inner kingdom forces you to face an uncomfortable truth. Most of what truly protects and transforms you is not sweet, easy, or immediately enjoyable. In health and in life, the pulp, the pleasant, obvious parts, get all the attention, while the seeds, the habits, disciplines, and long-term choices get thrown away. Grapeseed asks you, what am I carelessly discarding in my own life that could actually protect my future? Yeah. You can keep chasing quick comfort and complain when your body and mind deteriorate too soon. Or you can take responsibility now by investing in what doesn't feel glamorous, but is deeply effective. Transformation is rarely tasteful at first. It is bitter, gritty, and requires persistence. But if you stay with it, your future self will thank you for the kingdom you quietly built inside, while everyone else was busy enjoying the pulp and throwing away the seed. Chapter 12. The Seed of Return. Ancient wheat. Every path has its final step. Every teaching, no matter how rich, must one day reach its last lesson. Every circle, if it is to be a circle at all, must close. I have saved this seed for the end, not because it is less important than the others, but because it holds them all together. Without it, the 11 seeds you have met are powerful but separate notes. With it, they become a single melody capable of reshaping a human life from the roots upward. This is the 12th sacred seed, the seed of return. It returns us to where we began as a species, to the first agreement between human hands and the soil, to the grain that fed our ancestors when they stopped wandering and decided to stay, plant, wait, and build. It is ancient wheat, the grain our forefathers called einkorn, the original bread that not only fills the stomach, but, in a way many have forgotten, also feeds the soul. There is a profound difference between the wheat most of the world eats today and the wheat that nourished humanity for thousands of years. Modern wheat has been reshaped by human will, crossed, selected, and modified again and again to produce more yield, more profit, more convenience. Farmers like it because it fills more sacks per field. Merchants like it because it brings more coins per harvest. Bakers like it because it behaves predictably, and produces airy loaves that look impressive in shop windows. But in this relentless pursuit of more, something was quietly lost. Something subtle but essential. Something no machine can measure but the human body can sense. When I eat modern wheat, my body accepts it with polite distance, as if tolerating a stranger who has shown up at my door uninvited. When I eat ancient wheat, my body reacts differently. It relaxes. It welcomes. It is like opening the door to an old friend who has finally come home. That difference is undeniable to anyone who approaches both with attention and honesty. Einkorn was the first wheat humans chose to cultivate. Over 10,000 years ago, in the very mountains where our community would eventually seek refuge, early farmers noticed a wild grass growing among the rocks, where other crops refused to live. It did not look grand. Its heads were small. Its grains were tiny. Yet something about it caught their eye. Or perhaps their intuition. They gathered its seeds. They sowed them deliberately. They learned to harvest and grind them on heavy stones, to mix the flour with pure water, to let the dough ferment naturally with the wild yeasts floating in the air, and finally to bake it on hot stones warmed by the same fire that warmed their bodies and lit their nights. For generation after generation, this bread became the foundation of life. Empires rose and fell on einkorn. Soldiers marched across continents fueled by its strength. Families grew up around fires, eating this bread, telling stories, bearing children, burying their old. Without ancient wheat, our history would be unrecognizable. My master guarded einkorn seeds the way some men guard gold or precious stones. He kept them in sealed clay jars lined with beeswax, hidden in the coolest, darkest corner of our settlement. He had received those seeds from his master, who had received them from his, in an unbroken chain stretching back beyond written records. No one knew how many hands had passed those seeds along, how many winters and wars they had survived. We only knew they carried something sacred, a living thread connecting us to every ancestor who had ever planted them, and to every descendant who might still eat them long after our names had turned to dust. Each spring, when the earth began to soften under the sun's returning warmth, we planted a small patch of ground with those seeds. Not the best soil, not the largest field, but the safest, sheltered from storms, protected from floods, blessed with just enough water. We watched those plants grow with a care that felt like prayer. They were shorter than common wheat, less showy, more modest, yet they had a quiet dignity. Their heads did not droop heavy with oversized grain. They stood upright, as if content to be exactly what they were and nothing more. At harvest, we set aside the best kernels, the ones that looked strongest, most whole, specifically for planting the next year. That simple act of selection and saving created a living continuity. As our hands sifted the grains, it felt as if we were touching not only the seeds, but the hands of all those who had done the same before us. Time collapsed into a single gesture, human beings preserving life for those who would come after. Einkorn bread is different from modern bread in ways language struggles to capture. Yes, it is denser. Yes, it is darker. But those words are poor shadows of the truth. The first bite tastes like earth. Clean earth, newly wet with rain, roasted grain, something primitive, honest, and reassuring. The second bite reveals subtler notes, a hint of natural sweetness, like wild honey or dried flowers. By the third, something unexpected happens. A feeling spreads from your belly to your chest, as if you are being embraced from the inside. A deep, quiet satisfaction replaces the restless hunger that so often lingers after eating modern bread. The white, Fluffy loaves of the cities may look beautiful, but they often leave the body empty, asking silently for what it did not receive. Einkorn leaves the body fed on multiple levels at once. As a healer, I saw many people arrive complaining that wheat had become their enemy. Their bellies swelled painfully after eating bread. Their energy crashed, dragging them into heavy sleep. Their skin flared with rashes. Their joints ached. Their minds filled with fog. Many had given up wheat altogether, convinced they were forever banished from the table of bread. We tested them slowly, carefully, with small pieces of einkorn bread. To our surprise, and theirs, the usual reactions did not come. Their stomachs remained calm. Their thoughts stayed clear. They did not feel poisoned. They felt nourished. Some cried when they realized they could eat bread again without suffering. They were not just tasting food. They were tasting belonging. We never fully explained why ancient wheat behaved so differently. We simply observed that the human body and this grain had grown up together for thousands of years. They knew each other. They had shaped one another. Einkorn seemed to offer a kind of strength unlike anything else. Not a one-time jolt, but a steady, enduring power that carried people through seasons of hard labor, through childbirth, through old age. Workers eating einkorn could endure long hours under a merciless sun without collapsing. Elders who made it their staple kept muscle and posture other people their age had long lost. Women who ate it during pregnancy bore sturdy children and recovered surprisingly fast. It was as though this wheat understood the human body intimately, because it had been studying it for 10 millennia. But I call einkorn the seed of return for reasons that go beyond its nutritional profile. Eating this bread reconnects us to something modern life has tried to erase, our bond with the earth and its cycles. And it pushes back against the illusion that food appears magically in shiny wrappers under harsh lights, separate from seasons, soil, and sweat. When I eat einkorn, I feel reattached to the land, to the sky, to the people who came before me. I imagine ancient hands harvesting its wild form, grinding it on stone, feeding their children with it. In those moments, it feels as if I am sitting at the same eternal table as them, sharing the same food across centuries. We are what we eat, yes, but we are also what our ancestors ate. When we eat what they ate, something deep in us wakes up. We remember that we are not rootless individuals, but living branches on a very old tree. The return is not just to the past, it is also a return to ourselves. Again and again I observed that those who made ancient wheat their main grain experienced a return to levels of health they believed gone forever. Energy that belonged only to their youth began to seep back into their days. Mental clarity sharpened. Digestion, once burdened and confused by processed foods, found its rhythm again. Sleep, long, shallow, and fragmented, grew deep and restorative. It was as if the body sighed in relief and said, "Finally, this I remember." My master taught that einkorn was the only fitting way to close the cycle of the 12 sacred seeds. All the other seeds bring fire, silence, movement, protection, cleansing, rebuilding. But they all need a foundation strong enough to hold their work. Mustard's fire needs fuel. Flax's calm needs a container. Fenugreek's movement needs a structure to move through. Grapeseed's protection needs walls to reinforce. Einkorn provides that ground. It is the floor under the house, the soil under the garden, the bass note under the melody. Without it, the effects of the other seeds are real, but scattered. With it, they settle into a lasting harmony. This is the 12th sacred seed. The seed of return. The seed that closes the circle and in doing so, opens a new way of being. With this return, everything you have learned no longer floats as separate ideas. It integrates into a living system capable of transforming your body from the inside out. The body regenerates not because it learns something completely new, but because it remembers something ancient and true. Health does not arrive from the outside. It returns from within when we finally give it what it has been waiting for all along. Whoever eats ancient bread eats the bread of their lineage. Whoever eats the bread of their lineage inherits the strength stored up by countless generations, and whoever inherits that strength has what they need to live fully, and when the time comes, to leave this world in peace. The circle is complete. The 12 seeds have spoken. The seed of return invites you to do something most people spend their lives avoiding. Go back to the source, not backward in time to escape the present, but backward in wisdom to recover what was never meant to be lost. You can keep building your life on hurried choices, processed habits, or in temporary fixes. Or you can choose to rebuild on a deeper foundation, real food, real connection, real responsibility. Ancient wheat is not just about bread. It is a symbol of every original truth you have drifted away from. Ask yourself, where have I left what is simple and true in exchange for what is convenient and shallow? And am I willing to return? No healer, no book, no seed can make that decision for you. But if you choose to come back, to honest nourishment, to respect for your body, to alignment with something larger than your own impulses, then all the seeds you plant from this day on will grow into a life that is not just longer, but deeper, wiser, and whole.